All right, guys. So let's look at example 2. So for example 2, we're going to sketch the graph f of x equals 4 times 3 to the x minus 1. Okay, so let's look at what we have. We have our a value, which is 4. So that means our y-intercept was at 4 before any shifting. I also know that since it's positive, my graph is not going to be reflected. So it's going to be above the x-axis. Well, most of the graph will be above the x-axis. Okay, so let's look at our b value. Our b value is 3. So that tells us that we have growth. So our graph should go in the upward trend, like that. I have no h value, so I'm not shifting on my x-axis. And my k value is -1. So that means my, horizontal asymptote is at y equals -1. So that also means my new y-intercept is 1 unit down from where it was. So it was at 4, but I shifted down 1 unit. So my y-intercept is going to be at 0.3. Okay, so let's sketch the graph. So I have -1, -2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 1, 2. So I'm going to plot my y-intercept at 0.3. I am going to sketch in my horizontal asymptote. And now I'm going to pick 2 values, one to the left and one to the right of my point. So I have x, and then I have 4 times 3 to the x minus 1, and then I have y. So I'm going to choose -1, +1. So I have 4 times 3 to the -1st minus 1. 3 to the -1st is 1/3 minus 1. So I have 4 times 1/3, which is 4/3, and then 4/3 minus 1 is 1/3. So my y value is about 0.3. So -1, and then 0.3 is very close to that -1. And then when my x value is 1, I have 4 times 3 to the 1st minus 1. Oh, 3 to the 1st is 3. 3 times 4 is 12. 12 minus 1 is 11. So that's way off the graph, right? That's way up here. So I'm at 1 and then 11, which is way up here. So that just tells me that it's going to go up pretty fast. So I can sketch in the rest. So I need it to curve upwards, right? And I need it to approach my horizontal asymptote. So that's a sketch. It doesn't have to be super, super accurate as long as I have my points, I have my table, I have my asymptote. That is a pretty good sketch. So let's talk about the domain. So my domain is all real numbers, and my range is y is greater than -1, or you could have -1 to infinity. Okay? So let's do one more example. So example 3, let's sketch the graph. F of x equals -2 times 1/2 to the x plus 3. So let's go through and talk about what we know about our graph. We know our a value is -2. So a value is -2. So what does that tell us? That tells us our y-intercept before shifting was at -2. It also tells us that our graph is reflected over the x-axis. Okay, so my graph is now going to flip over that x-axis. So let's talk about my b value. So my b value is 1/2. And what does that tell me? That tells me that this was a decay. So this tells me that my graph would look like this, but if I'm reflecting that over my x-axis, it's going to look like this. Okay? So now let's talk about my k value. I have no h value, right? H value is 0, so there's no horizontal shifting. So let's talk about the k value. My k value is +3. So that means my function has shifted up 3 units. Also tells me my horizontal asymptote is at y equals 3. So that also is going to tell us one more thing, right? This also tells us our new y-intercept, if it was at -2 and I shifted it up 3. So even if you look here, right, I was at -2 and then my whole function moved up 3 units. Where is my new y-intercept? It's at 1. So my new y-intercept is at 0, 1. So -2 plus 3 gives you your new y-intercept, if you don't want to visualize it like that. Okay? So my new y-intercept is at 0, 1. So let's sketch this graph. Okay, so I have 1, 2, 3, -1, -2, -3, 1, 2, 1, 2. So my asymptote is at 3. My new y-intercept is at 1. Okay, so let's make a table. So I have x, and then I have negative 2 times 1/2 to the x plus 3, and then y. So if x is negative 1 and positive 1, I have negative 2 times 1/2 to the negative first plus 3. 1/2 to the negative first is 2. So I have negative 2 times 2 plus 3. Negative 2 times 2 is negative 4, and negative 4 plus 3 is negative 1. So I have a point at negative 1, negative 1. And now let's look at if x was 1. So I have negative 2 times 1/2 to the first plus 3. 1/2 to the first is just 1/2. And negative 2 times 1/2 is negative 1. And then negative 1 plus 3 is positive 2. So 1, positive 2. So I'm going to go one more this way because I'm not super close to my asymptote yet. You don't have to since you're sketching. I just like to because I want to be a little bit more accurate. So I'm going to say x is equal to 2. So I have negative 2 times 1/2 squared plus 3. So I have negative 2 times 1/4 plus 3. Negative 2 times 1/4 is 1/2, negative 1/2, and negative 1/2 plus 3 is 2.5. So 2 and then 2.5. So that just gives me a little bit better of an idea for that curve. So let's do this. And so there's your graph. Okay? So I know we did a lot today, but A value tells you your y-intercept before any shifting happens. It also tells you if it's going to be reflected over the x-axis or not. B value tells you if you have growth, which goes up, or decay, which goes down. Your h, we didn't do any with h values. That is more, you'll see that more when we do growth and decay with word problems, but with graphing, we don't really need to focus on that horizontal shift. This is just an introduction to exponential functions. And then your k value tells you a lot. Your k value tells you your horizontal asymptote, how many units your graph has shifted up or down, and it can help you identify your new y-intercept after the reflections. After the transformations. Oh, it's getting late. So let me know if you have questions. You do have some that you can practice on your own on lined paper. If you have your binder, so you can put that in your binder when you're done. And I will put the answer key, the answer key is also up on Google Classroom. And then you will have an independent one to graph and to upload the picture so that I can check in with you. I'm sorry, my dog is freaking out upstairs and my attention is on him freaking out. He's like zooming around upstairs. Okay, so go do your practice problems, join the chat for your math class. If you have questions for me, you can email me, you can sign up for a conference meeting with me. But anyway, all right, guys, I'll see you soon. Bye.